Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intune.training, the place to learn how to use Microsoft Intune, the Stephen Adams Show with Ben, the intern, and special guest, Leon Ashton-Leatherland. Leon, welcome
Hello.
back, sir.
How are you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great.
How you going, Leon?
Good, thanks.
Having fun?
Yeah, having fun in this crazy storm here in the UK at the moment. I've not seen anything like it, but yeah, Adam, for the likes of yourself, it's probably in Texas. You've seen that kind of thing quite often, right? But it's, yeah.
Literally on Tuesday.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Yeah. It's probably that one hitting us now. Yeah, it's crazy. Really wet and windy, especially for the end of August. But there we go. It's a typical bank holiday weekend in the UK. Rainy.
And, you know, screwing up your fishing for tomorrow and stuff, I'm sure.
I'm actually going on Sunday, so fingers crossed. The weather's looking good, but I managed to squeeze a few hours in the other night and caught myself a nice carp, so all good.
Nice. I can't remember. Did we talk about this on our last chat? Did we record it? I know we chatted about it. Did we record talking about carps? Because
I don't think we did.
I don't think so.
No.
Anyway, so Leon fishes for carp. And did you say there's a mirror carp? Is that the right?
That's
name
right.
for it?
Yeah. Mirror carp, common carp, ghost carp, grass
So
carp.
what's the deal with that for the audience's sake?
So very popular in the UK and indeed Europe. Plan for me is to hopefully have my first trip to France next year, where they have some very big carp. Yeah, it's just a very good sport. They're really powerful fish. And ultimately, the bigger they are, the more elusive they are. They're quite a shy fish. Yeah, it's just glorified camping, really, because most of the time I don't catch anything. I've just had a very good year.
Nice.
So yeah, and it's just nice. I'm very fortunate. I've got some lakes literally a couple of miles down the road. So you know, when I'm kind of midweek and brain's a little bit fried, just sit down the lake for a few hours, chill out. Put my head in a bucket. Put my brain in a bucket. Sorry, not my head. Yeah.
Wow.
Very cool. Well, I've looked up the mirror carp stuff, and I love fishing as well. And it's one of those, like, I had never heard of this or seen this before. And just even the whole apparatus that you use to get it out. You've got this mat and like this cradle thing you pull them out of the water in to protect the scales, and it's like, what is this? Like, no one likes carp where we're at. You know, those are trash fish. They overtake the lakes and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, the carp has been an invasive pest in one of our rivers.
Really?
Introduced invasive pest, yeah.
Yeah. This is the Murray.
Yeah, Murray cod.
And
Yeah.
I don't know
Well,
if you've seen,
it was
there's a carp, or there's a lake in, maybe it's Arkansas, where they introduced a carp to help with the vegetation, and it overtook the carp. It was supposed to be sterile, but it wasn't, which seems to always be the story with these things.
Yeah.
So you drive your boat down the river, and the carp will jump out of the river and just cream you in the face while you're going down the river and stuff. So there's whole videos of there's these great videos of guys going down water skis with like nets in their hands, and they're trying to catch the carp as they're going behind the boat and stuff. It is.
There's a series on Netflix. I've watched it recently. It's called Catching Monsters, and I saw it. It's actually killed some people as well.
Yeah.
Well, because they just
You were
come up
going
in
to
the
say
air
Black
and smack
Mirror.
them.
Yeah, they just, any noise in the water causes them to jump out, so they just fly out while you're cruising. Anyway, we're not here to talk about fishing, but it's what keeps us sane, and let's just, whatever. You know what? We're talking about what we want to talk about. Thanks.
Welcome to joining Intune Training, the place where you're going to learn how to fish.
And anything else you want. You asked for it. Here it is. All right. So since the last time we spoke, Leon, you have started your own YouTube series called Leon's IT Vlog, which is nice because it complements Leon's IT blog, which you told us about last time. Like it. Keeping with a trend there. So tell us a little bit about your channel.
Yeah, so on the name, and I just kind of kept it. I was going to change it, but you know what? Just go with it. But yeah, started up a YouTube channel. The main kind of aim of it is to produce a series of shorter videos, primarily discussing what's latest and what's been released within Intune. So far, I've just been covering the actual service releases. I'll also be covering any of the weekly releases as well within the product. And then if I kind of feel there's a nice tip or trick from out in the field, I'll also add that in as well, really. So I'm a little bit behind with the releases at the moment, but there we go. It's got to fit around the day job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And did you record this first one while you were out fishing?
The first one I was sat under my apple tree in the back garden.
Oh, very nice.
But I do intend on producing a couple when I'm by the lake. Yeah. Obviously, they won't be too demo heavy. I might be able to give it a go. Actually, just depends.
Could you imagine doing one streaming from your mobile phone while fishing?
Exactly.
And having
Absolutely.
a fish jump out at you.
Yeah,
And
no, I
catching
think
a
this
fish.
is a fantastic content idea.
Yeah. So I'll give it a go one day for sure.
Excellent.
But yeah, to find it, obviously just search for Leon's IT vlog. But if I just quickly share my desktop, there's a link to the vlog here through my blog.
Excellent.
There you go.
We'll definitely
And we
put all
will-
the links to everything down below.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Yep.
Real.
All right. So let's get down to the cool bits here. So we were chatting beforehand, and we recognized, or we mentioned that we didn't do that great of a job in our initial and the only Android video that we've done on this channel when we first started. We were trying. Anyway, Leon has graciously agreed to come back on and just kind of fill as much time as he wants, telling us all the things he knows about Intune. This is one of the specialties that he gets to focus on in his day job. And for what it's worth, I've never managed an Intune or an Android an Intune device. I've never managed an Android device, and so it's great to be able to see the other side of this stuff. And so let's dig right in.
Sure.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Sorry, Leon, can you minimize? You've got my video up there.
Yeah, sure.
That or minimize.
No problem.
Adam doesn't like seeing himself back.
No one likes seeing themselves.
True.
Absolutely agreed. Okay, so lots to try and squeeze in today. So I suppose I'd like to just start off talking about what the legacy way of managing our Android devices is within Intune, which is the device admin enrollment type. So that solution, it's been around since Android 2.2, and it originally was designed. It wasn't designed for MDM per se. It was designed in order to give an app administrative privileges on a device.
Yeah.
So
right.
it was kind of a one size fits all. Ultimately, not great for BYOD scenarios because you had the ability to see absolutely everything on that device. Very easy to nuke somebody's personal device with obviously a lot of personal information on, photos, etc., stuff like that. Required for app deployment. So the app deployment experience on it wasn't great. You could simply deploy what was called a deep link to the store, and simply it would just nag the user to install an app, but it wouldn't actually forcibly install it, so that you couldn't really achieve a seamless app deployment on that.
So it was more suggestive than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. It would just nag the end user for sure. And then, of course, in the company-owned scenario, you had an admin overhead of creating public Google accounts for everybody's devices, which it wasn't great at all. Yeah, so kind of that was around for quite a while.
Mhm.
And also what happened as well was there was a very unlevel playing field in the Android space. So with the Android OS, the benefit of it is it's an open source OS, is very flexible, which gives the ability for OEMs to add their own value on top with their own API set. That's all well and good, but that then kind of means that with the Intune product, there's going to be a significant, well, not significant, but there'll be a delay in development time while the service was built for support for certain features. If indeed features will be supported at all for a specific OEM, because ultimately, if there's not a popularity for a specific OEM of a device, then why would Microsoft invest the time on it, right?
Yeah.
So by far the most popular supported platform has even until now has been Samsung devices and their Knox API set. So that, along with the fact that you couldn't really get it was a very fragmented experience in the way that you was able to try and manage a device with the device management APIs. So a Sony device would be different to a Samsung, would be completely different to a Google device, etc. So for device management experience, it was very fragmented. So step forward a few years, and Android Enterprise was first kind of announced in 2014. It wasn't mandatory until I believe a year after. And what Google seeked to achieve there was some kind of consistency with the way that Android devices are managed. Okay, and along with the introduction of Android Enterprise, brought along the ability to address various different enterprise scenarios. So rather than having your device admin one size fits all, you've now got multiple scenarios that can be achieved with this, which we'll kind of dive into shortly in a bit more detail. Lots of other rich features introduced as a result of Android Enterprise. And we'll kind of have a look at that now. But what I'd first like to do, guys, if I may, is just literally illustrate how simple it is to set up an Intune tenant for Android and Enterprise enrollment. That's
sure.
okay.
Good to me.
Please.
So this is my old test lab that I'm moving away from, and what I like to do when I'm navigating through the I'm going to call it the EMAC. I don't know if that's the correct acronym or not, because I can't be bothered to call it the Endpoint Manager at the time.
MEMAC. M-E-M-A-C.
MEMAC. Okay.
MEMAC.
Sounds a bit like Mima off of The Big Bang Theory. And
Hey,
Oh,
Leon.
Yeah.
Leon, can you just make your screen just a little bit bigger? Just zoom that bad boy in.
I can zoom in the browser.
Yeah, that's
Go
fine.
on.
I think
Thank
it's. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
That's
Yep.
fine. Yeah.
Awesome. I think it's the size of this monitor and the resolution.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So in the MEMAC, I like to get in the habit of, if I am going to be working in the context of a specific platform, I like to navigate to devices and then the platform. That then means that when I'm having a look at my configuration profiles, all that is listed are my Android ones, etc., etc. So how do we set up Android enrollment? Obviously, we go to Android enrollment. So as you can see, we've got different enrollment profiles. They're kind of grayed out at the moment. We've got device admin at the bottom, which, yeah, that is kind of where that should belong at the moment. But there are some use cases where that does need to be used, and we'll cover that shortly. So first step is you need to link your tenant with the managed Google Play service. So managed Google Play gives you the ability to provide a seamless app deployment to your devices. So rather than the end user just getting the NAG and being prompted to install an app from the public store. We've got the managed Google Play Store, which will give that seamless experience. It also provides native app configuration functionality, which we'll dive into later on as well. So you literally click on there, and then all you need to do in order to bind this managed Google Play is create yourself a public Google account. Okay, so I've already got one. Accept the terms. Launch on Google to connect now. Now this has previously been enrolled, so I'm going to simply re-enroll. But there's a wizard where you have to go through this. It's a couple of screens. It talks about data protection, accepting some terms and conditions, authenticating with your Google account, and that's literally it. Okay, so I'm just going to click re-enroll. And then that is our tenant bound with managed Google Play. And now what you will see is it then lights up these other enrollment profiles. Cool. Okay. So really, the only other thing to consider now is, are you going to be using device admin or not? Now, in some countries, Android Enterprise is not supported. Okay.
Do you know off the top of your head which countries that would be?
China be an example. I can't remember any of the others, to be honest, but it is documented.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, cool.
Otherwise, it'll be in the chat later on.
So in them scenarios, you are going to have to utilize either just app protection or your device admin enrollment. Okay, so the only thing to consider now is if you're going to be using that or not. The recommendation by default, if you can avoid it, is to not go down that path. That has support has been removed as of Android. It was deprecated for some of the API. Some of the APIs were deprecated in Android 9. They have subsequently been removed in Android 10. And support will be removed even further in Android 11 when that's released. Okay. So, thing to consider now is our enrollment restrictions. Okay, so you can even kind of go through this. So, right, okay, I want to look at work profile and just kind of read what's on the screen. It gives a nice description and talks about exactly that, enrollment restrictions. If you click on the link, it'll tell you where to go. So I'll just skip to that now. So it's under devices, enroll devices, and then enrollment restrictions. And it's the device type restrictions we're interested in here. Okay, so we just go to the properties of this and edit the platform. Now I've already set this up. One time a day, new tenants, this was blocked by default. Mm-hmm. I have just spun up a new tenant recently, and I'm pretty sure that was set to allow. So always a good idea to check in here, just to make sure that this is set to your requirements. So we're just talking about specifically in the Android context today. So block Android device admin if you're not intending on using it in your environment. And likewise, view the work profile enrollments as well, just to see if you are going to allow personally owned enrollments or indeed any enrollments for that method. I would suggest that you certainly do. And we'll dig into that further in a bit. Other than that, really, that is kind of your tenant set up and ready to go.
So just out of interest here, Leon, the device manufacturer name, what's that?
Yeah, so this gives the ability to restrict enrollments to specific manufacturers.
Okay, so cool.
If you've got only a certain set of manufacturers that you're going to allow, you can specify that in there. So, for example, if you're in an organisation where you're not going to allow any BYOD enrollments, you could go ahead and block this. And then if you want to ensure that only pre-declared or corporate device identified provision devices can enroll, but of a specific manufacturer, you can specify in that field there.
So this is where you could put in like your Zebra scanners or things like that.
Yeah, absolutely, to allow that.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, and probably good to mention it now. A key manufacturer to talk about in this scenario are Huawei devices. Unfortunately, as a result of some sort of trade agreements or disagreements with the US, moving forward, new Huawei devices will not be supporting Google managed services, which will mean they will not be able to enroll into Android Enterprise. That's it does, because I own a P20 Pro and it is the best device I've ever had. But there we go, kind of is what it is. And it would be in that scenario, if you was to decide to use them, you would need to enroll them with device admin or app protection only. Cool. So so for the actual enrollment piece, that's kind of it. Now I'm gonna get rid of that tenant now, because I have no use for it any further, and we'll just dig into the different enrollment methods. Now they're called the terminology for these are solution sets, and they have had all sorts of different names given to them by Google in the past, and it's been particularly difficult to keep up with them. Alongside that as well, just to confuse matters even more, some of the terminology that was used by Google has now been adopted as kind of is also used as a generic term within the mobility space.
Yeah, I was going to say that all the like cope stuff I've heard, but I didn't know where it came from.
Sure. So we'll just discuss that. We'll discuss that now, actually. If we just start from the top and move across, then.
Yep. Sounds good.
Work profile enrollment. So in this scenario, this is where I'm not going to say the device enrolls, but an enrollment is initiated, and a container is inflated on the device, and then what that facilitates is company apps and data can be secured within that container, and the actual device policy controller, so in this case the Intune company portal, has kind of minimal interaction to the rest of the device.
I've got this feature on my phone, right, and it's fantastic, because one of the things that allows you to do is at the end of the day, or whenever you don't want to be dealing with work stuff, you press a button at the top of the screen and it turns off the work profile.
Bingo, the single best feature out of the whole of the Android Enterprise suite, in my opinion. I disable mine every evening.
Same.
I'm very fortunate. In my current role, I'm not having to be on call or anything like that. So at the end of the day, that gets disabled. We'll do a little demo of that in a bit, just to show how kind of good that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely, completely agree with you there, Steve. Brilliant feature.
I hope Apple brings something out like that soon too.
Well, they've had a go at it. They've started making inroads to that, but it's been in public preview, I think, for over a year. But yeah, it would be absolutely great. I completely agree. It's certainly needed. Okay, so your work profile solution, typically this is for use in your BYOD scenarios. It's privacy friendly, and as I mentioned, the enrollment on that is initiated by downloading the company portal app from the public Google Play Store. Okay, so no kind of additional setup or profiles required for that. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through an enrollment. Can you see? Is this showing okay, guys?
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So So there we have the company portal app. It's already been downloaded from the public store. So you launch it now. I've noticed recently in recent kind of releases that of the portal app that it's becoming a more streamlined experience now. So you will see across some of the newer solution sets that it utilizes the Microsoft Intune application rather than the Intune company portal. Discuss further on that in a bit, but it is really great now that it seems that the work profile enrollment is kind of catching up with the experience of the newer enrollment types. So yeah, we'll go ahead and sign in. And they unfortunately have to see me fumble around with I haven't set up my custom domain yet, so it's a non-Microsoft one.
That's okay.
Microsoft.com. Super password, and there it goes. It's a very nice experience here. Very transparent, open, self-explanatory to the user carrying out the enrollment. Tells them exactly what's going to happen. Tells them exactly what the tenant can never see, what it may see, etc. So very kind of privacy aware.
That's cool.
Crack on through the wizard, and then what I will add now is this part will be slightly different depending on the OEM and indeed sometimes the operating system of the device. So whilst the Android Enterprise is seeking to standardize, there's still that element of a value add from the OEM on top of what is there with the Android Enterprise API set. Okay. Yep. So as I mentioned, this is a Huawei device. It's Android 10. I've had two Android upgrades on this. Great.
Wow.
To 9 and to 10 from 8. Really good. Okay. So what's actually happening now in the background is that, and it's happened very quickly. Wow, that really is a good experience. So the public procured downloaded company portal app authenticated, then enrolls, and then automatically the badged company portal application launched authenticated again, and you'll see kind of what I mean by badge shortly. When I was first working with Android Enterprise and Intune, that experience wasn't seamless. It's quite painful, but the tech support and the product group were very responsive on that, and updates soon came out, and it was kind of rectified. Certainly come a long way. Okay, and it's at this point now where kind of any apps and config will now start to kind of be deployed to the device.
That's crazy.
So you will, if you attempt to do this on an older device, and indeed a device that doesn't have a lot of memory, you'll see it will struggle. It will struggle. There are some kind of minimum recommended requirements that I would suggest, which I'll talk about sort of towards the end of the session today. Mm-hmm. But yeah, again, this is kind of fairly recently introduced as well. Just to kind of save confusion, just mentions that any apps that are going to be available within a badged company portal, and you can the end user can open that and go ahead and install their apps. Just going to take a little while for them to download. Now, what you can see on the home screen is it's created a work folder and popped our badged applications in there. Okay, and there we can see that's Teams, and the other apps are now coming through.
Nice.
Should I cover that now or not? No. So that's basically it. Now, as Steve mentioned, You kind of stole my thunder there, Steve, but never mind.
Sorry. I didn't realize.
No, he's just very excited about it. I remember.
I completely agree.
Yeah, when Steve moved over to his shiny new job, that was the first thing that he started bragging about. He's like, I can just turn my emails off. It's amazing.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, I'm not saying it isn't.
Honestly, working for a global organization where you're going to get emails all night, waking up in the middle of the night and looking at your phone and not having emails is just fantastic.
Absolutely. If you're anything like me, I can't be doing with kind of like, I mean, that's not doing my OCD any good now. I don't like notifications, unread emails on my phone. I have to look at them, which is my own fault, right? But yeah, and how do we do this? How do we disable the work profile? You simply swipe down and then turn off work mode. As you can see, everything.
Can you do that slower?
Yeah, sure.
Very fast.
Yeah. So you swipe down from the top. You may have to edit your system tray.
Yeah.
And you may have to swipe to the right, but it's the work mode option there. So that turns it back on. Requires a pin. Got one. And there it is. That's back. Cool. So it disables absolutely everything, notifications, the whole lot from that profile.
That's great.
Yep. It literally just turns off the container.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So before you proceed from that, just a conceptual idea here in general. So I don't have a company phone, but I have company email and stuff through. We do like a Citrix app. I'm on an iPhone, and part of our, my job is I'm on call 24/7, and several of us are. And if something breaks overseas or in the middle of the night or whatever, we're expected to, answer our phone and take care of business. Well, I don't have a home phone. All I have is my cell phone. I charge it at my bedside, and I have it set to automatically go into do not disturb mode every night before bed. And then it turns back off right before I wake up every morning so that, it's on whenever I need it. So similar, but it takes care of the whole phone. Well, so we've got into some discussions around but if the help desk needs to call me in the middle of the night, the way that the iPhone works is there's a mode that if someone calls you that's not on your favorites list or whatever 3 times in a row, then it will allow it to go through. But they have to know that they need to call you 3 times in a row to get you, and they're not going to do that because they don't know. And so I guess from a turn it off perspective is great to be fully unplugged. But if there's there's that challenge of I need to turn off my phone and notifications so that I can sleep. Otherwise, I'm going to put my phone in the other room and I'm still not going to hear it. So it's going to be even worse. What is this? How do people do this where you need to be on call, but you don't want to be in touch unless it's an emergency at the same time kind of scenario? Now, I know you're just turning off your work profiles. You're not getting emails and notifications, but, same kind of deal.
If phone calls and stuff. If people are going to have to ring you, that doesn't get turned off with work profile.
Right. I understand. But just, I guess it would be nice if there was a way to, to be able to turn off do not disturb, except, allow certain things to make it through if they need to, kind of granularity, if that makes any sense.
But that's also where that's where you start looking at silent notifications and things like that. So you suppress notifications so you don't get as much noise at night or things like that. But see, I like the fact that they can't ring me on Teams after hours. Like as soon as I hit work profile, Teams is not on.
Yeah, sure, but you also don't have an on-call position. So I completely understand.
Yes.
I understand that concept. You just need to tweak the settings to fit the job description, basically.
Yeah. But the thing is, if you're on call, the expectation isn't going to be that you turn off your work profile at night.
Exactly. And if you're doing like rotating on call, for example, say you do it, once a month or whatever, then unfortunately that's just part of the job.
Yep, exactly. Answering the call on the first ring. That's part of the job, isn't it, Ben?
No comment, Stephen. No comment.
But I mean, even similarly, like, so you can turn off your whole work profile, but what if you were, it comes down to, like, I want to be able to allow these 3 people in Teams to message me, but no one else, kind of granularity. I think that would be a nice feature enhancement in general across this type of concept, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I know no one cares. No one that can make that change is listening to this. But.
I mean, that scenario, you could probably consider having Teams in your personal profile instead of your work profile.
Depending upon
here's a question for you.
Yeah,
Leon, can you have multiple containers?
It's not supported in Intune.
Okay.
I'm aware of it being supported in other solutions.
Okay.
But no, not in Intune.
Also, can you have more than one work profile?
Yeah,
that's what
more
he was
than
asking.
one.
That's what Ben was asking. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant breaking up the apps into 2 different buckets.
No, so the scenario I had in my head was having, like multiple containers, aka multiple work profiles, aka you have your on-call container that is, that will never shut down. But obviously the framework is set there that you can turn off the work profile. So unless there was a flag in it that said this doesn't adhere to global settings, then it wouldn't even matter if you could do it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Anyway,
I believe the OS has supported it since Android 10. I believe so. But yeah.
I mean, it makes sense to me that you could do it because it's literally just containering, right? If you can do 1 container, you can do 100 if your device can support that many containers.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay then, guys. So that's kind of a little bit of an overview of work profile. So I suppose we just have a quick look in how we would configure this kind of device, where the configuration settings are, and indeed groups. So how we would scope them settings to a group and the kind of queries that you'd need. So we'll have a quick look at that first. So I've got 2 here: Android Work Profile Corp and Personal. Now, just a word of note on this. So a work profile device that has the ownership of corporate is different to the newly introduced company-owned, corporate-owned work profile solution set. That there is also known as COPE, but we'll come on to that in a bit. Okay, so there's the potential for that to be quite confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, they're similar, but they're different.
Same but different.
Yeah.
Also, I can't help but notice that you use underscores in your naming convention. Well done.
Yes, I didn't used to, and then
a hard time about it.
Yeah.
Spaces in names are bad.
Yeah, for automation and all that kind of good stuff, right?
Well, for automation, and look, I mean, the back end of all of the Azure stuff, using Graph, putting spaces in things is just a bad scene. Trying to explain that to people who have primarily spent the majority of their professional career in a Windows bubble where case sensitivity and things like this don't matter. It's a very blunt and hard realization to come to that things out there actually require those.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's fun to watch.
Absolutely.
Anyway, you were going somewhere important. Proceed.
No problem. Just take a quick look at our dynamic device group query then for a work profile. Okay, so for this one, it's actually a device OS type of Android for work. So the reason it's called that is because that is what the solution used to be called. It was called Android for work before it was called Android Enterprise. Quite nicely actually, the work profile solution set has adopted that as the device OS type, and it has remained that within Azure AD. Okay. The reason we have the ability to also have a corporately owned work profiles is because, as I mentioned before, that at one time of day was the only solution set available in Intune, and actually some companies kind of like that approach. They're not too concerned about the personal profile of the device, as long as the company data is secured within that profile. They're not too worried. So you will come across that scenario. Now, on the note of that, one thing to be aware of with a work profile device is that there is no way to carry out a full reset of the device from Intune.
Which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good because it's kind of prevalent for that particular use case, what it's designed for personally owned devices.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, showing you that. I'll quickly show you that now I've talked about it, because it's actually really nice, because it doesn't even give you the ability to wipe. It's grayed out completely.
But when you hit delete, does that remove the work profile off the device?
It doesn't. No. It will leave the data on the device.
Gotcha.
Does it make it so the user can't access it though, or is it still accessible?
My understanding is it's still accessible.
Right. So it literally just breaks the management connection between the portal and the device, but doesn't decommission.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there a way to
retire? Does that do it?
Second, sorry.
So if you hit retire, does that do it, or is that still the same?
So retire will actually remove all the whole work profile from the device.
Cool.
Perfect.
Is there a confirmation on that whenever it's done to validate that it's gone before you can delete it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get the confirmation.
Nice. So if you click on it, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Win32 app deployed.
Yeah. Important one to know for Windows. But yeah.
This is, anyway.
Yeah, they've just copied and pasted the retire warning from the other stuff.
Cool. Okay. So now let's have a quick look at some of the configuration profiles that we've got available for these devices. So again, we're talking mainly in the context of work profile at the moment. Okay, so devices, Android configuration profiles, I just want to show you the kind of experience when you go to create a profile. So you've got your two options, device admin and Android Enterprise. So you select Android Enterprise, and then you've got a whole raft of options there. So OEM config, very, very interesting profile type, which we'll talk about later on. And then you've got your profiles are grouped by fully managed, dedicated, and corporate owned work profile. It's a bit of a descriptive title, but to be fair, I think that is the most sensible option for that, so that it fully describes exactly what these profiles are applicable to. And then we've got the work profile ones at the bottom. So if you were in the context of what we were just talking about, you would select a work profile profile type. Then pretty much same kind of standardized experience as what you would see for most of the other profile types, the other platforms in Intune. And then I've just selected device restrictions there. And then Yeah, all sorts of options available. So kind of your main one really for your work profile solution is restricting the ability to copy and paste between your work and your personal profiles. A standard kind of security feature that you would want to protect your company data. Various other options, obviously not going to go through all of them today, but yeah, that's kind of it. And then you would assign that to your Azure AD group. Yeah, so that's kind of wrapped up really for work profile. If we now change gear and have a look at some of the other enrollment types, and this is where the terminology gets interesting. Okay, first of all, we have got our dedicated devices. Okay, so yeah, they're tagged as corporate owned because you will only use this in a company owned scenario. So it's designed for your kiosks. Okay, you've got two types of dedicated devices you can enroll, a multi-app kiosk or a single app kiosk. Okay, so this is kind of for your single use devices, or indeed for your multiple use devices. Okay, so your folks out in the field, digital signage, hotel reception desks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was formerly called COSU, which stands for corporate owned single use. And yeah, so that's so dedicated is that. What you need to do in order to complete the enrollment setup is create yourself an enrollment token. You can have multiple tokens, and then basically that token name is what you can use to scope the device to your Azure AD group, which I'll show you shortly. When you create your token, you simply give it a name, and then there's an expiration date for the token. When that token expires, it doesn't affect existing enrollments. It just means you can no longer use the token to enroll new devices, and you'll have to create a new one.
Right, so it's just a registration token, but once the device is registered, it's nothing because it's already registered.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'm not going to create one. It's pretty. That's it. You create it, and jobs are good, and you don't kind of assign it or anything like that. Cool. Now, what that essentially gives you, if we open it up, is a token. And if I click on show token, you've got a code, and you've got a QR code as well. So in order to enroll corporate owned devices in this scenario, you can use different methods, but it depends on the minimum version of the OS that is specified here. I'm just going to zoom in again, so it's the 125. So primarily what you should be seeing on devices that you're using now is QR code. If you're not using a device that's over Android 7, then yeah, it's potentially not being patched and potentially very unsecure. So
I mean, 7's very old. I'm on 11 at the moment. Just for context.
Oh, 11?
Yeah,
I'm using the beta version of it.
Nice.
How's the experience there going, Ben?
It's absolutely fantastic now. Ask me, let's jump in a phone booth and go back a couple of months. It was awful when it first came out, but that was the alpha version.
Phone booth, huh?
But it's ready to, phone booth. See how I put that one in?
Excited.
Yeah.
Very excited. Yes, anyway.
Cool. So different methods. We'll be focusing on the QR code one. I believe as well, as of Android 9, so from Android 7 to 9, it will prompt you to connect to Wi-Fi and download the QR code reader. As of Android 9 and newer, I believe it's already on the device itself. So it just kind of streamlines the experience slightly.
Android 9, that's a built-in. It's fantastic.
Yeah, so just makes it a bit faster. Zero touch. So we'll talk about that a bit later on, but essentially that is one of your enterprise bulk deployment methods that you can use. It's Google's native one that they have. Okay, so quick description of how you would enroll a device. So the device has to be reset. The only way for the device policy controller, so in this scenario, it'd be the Microsoft Intune app, that can put the device into what's called device owner mode. Okay, it has to be initiated through the out-of-box experience. So the device obviously has to be new, or you need to reset it. So to commence a QR code enrollment, all you have to do is tap in the blank space at the start of the out-of-box experience. I think it's 5 times, and then that will initiate the wizard. And then, depending on the OS you have, will prompt you to connect to Wi-Fi. QR code reader will come up. You scan that, and that will start the enrollment process. Okay, that is prevalent for some of our other solution sets as well. Okay, so that's enrollment. So single app and multi-app. Our Azure AD group that you would use would be based on enrollment profile name equals this. Okay, and then well, let's have a look at what a device looks like. So this is already enrolled. I haven't got a super duper funky cool toy like Steve has,
which isn't working at the moment.
Of course it's not.
Well, for the Android devices, it isn't working.
You did say that, Ben, didn't you?
Yeah.
Cool. We all knew that I was going to get to that point, and we're good with that.
Steve doesn't sacrifice for demo gods, so it's fine. Whatever. How he wants to live.
Really doesn't.
Cool. So this is our enrolled device. This is a multi-app kiosk. I have so there's loads of functionality available in this. I'll just show you the sheer amount of settings that are available. Not only just within the configuration profiles, but within some of the app configuration as well. It's incredible. As with the work profile solution, I've been playing around with and deploying this for customers pretty much since it's been available. And yeah, what's been added is very comprehensive now. So what you have to do for a dedicated multi-app kiosk is deploy a launcher application. And at the moment, the main one is the managed home screen app. Mm-hmm. So when you kind of deploy that, it gives this kind of very nice lockdown experience, and you can then go ahead and specify what is presented to the end user on this screen. And then, other than the managed settings app that you have here, which gives them a few basic settings that they can use, these can all be disabled. Indeed, the managed settings app can be disabled as well, but kind of a bit restrictive in some scenarios. And
you do have it pretty well locked down.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better than we did with Windows in our kiosk demo.
Let me not talk about kiosk.
Ben loves kiosk. He's going to do a future session on kiosk.
I've been through the pain on kiosks on Android and on Windows as well. So yeah, but yeah, once you kind of nail it, it's really good. So this is the managed home screen. I've specified a custom wallpaper which has to be published in a URL that's accessible. Within the app config, you can create nice folders of apps, name your folders, etc. As you can see also here, I have specified some system apps to be available. So I don't know, let's say the scenario is it's a phone that's shared by multiple employees. and you want them to be able to use it as a phone. If you just deploy the manage home screen, they're not going to be able to access some features. So you can expose them in here by enabling them system apps. On the note of these devices being used by an actual end user, so these devices are designed for when the device has no user affinity at all. Okay, so
Ben has no user affinity. He doesn't like them either.
No.
None.
Come on, guys. If it wasn't for users, we wouldn't have a job. I have to remind ourselves that. But
our jobs would be so much less stressful, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's certainly challenging at times, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so no email, not designed for deploying email apps, Teams app, not really, that kind of stuff. Indeed, when you see the device enrolled in the portal, the actual object itself, it's got kind of a random kind of ID in its device name. Okay, so yeah, no user affinity at all, and there's not, because of that, there's not the ability to evaluate for compliance, and hence no conditional access and other bits and pieces as well to be aware of. So if you're thinking of,
I guess by just sheer configuration and lockdown, you kind of are creating an environment that doesn't, you are ensuring conditional access by, or the conceptually, the equivalent to conditional access by locking it down with the multi-app dedicated profile anyway, right? That's to me that okay.
Absolutely, yeah. And
it's kind of, sorry, is this the kind of deal that you would use with like a custom, web form that somebody would use to sign in at like a, you go to the doctor's office and you check in with a kiosk type scenario? Is this use case?
Yeah, absolutely. I've implemented it in the past for a social housing organisation, and it was a tablet in the reception on kind of like a lectern type thing, and it had an app for tenants to be able to go in and pay their rent on it.
Nice.
All tenants.
Yeah, it is. It is worth pointing out that as much as we look at this and I personally, whenever I think about mobile phone management, the first thing that comes to mind is that, is a phone. It's a thing that you put in your pocket and you walk around and you waste time on Twitter. But the scope of that is significantly larger in this. All digital signage generally runs on some version of Android or Windows. And this allows us to tweak and customize that to do a very specific service. And this is exactly where Kiosk thrives, because it is what it is, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the thing that makes it great is that you start with the same base platform. You don't have to build a specific use app or not app, but like a whole platform to support one digital sign application type thing. It all runs on the same base OS, and then you just lock it down to make it what you need it to be. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of like there is obviously one standout challenge with this, and that's, well, kind of like how do you kind of get into the rest of the OS to for example, make sure updates are installed, or to just double check that an app's installed to the device or something like that.
Reset the device.
Well, yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to reset it manually, how would you do it? So a nice feature that's been added in this is where you can exit the kiosk mode. So if you press the back button, I don't know how many times, a few, and it presents this menu. You within the configuration profile, you can. Sorry.
What's the pin?
1 2 3 4.
How did you know my
Security.
password on my phone?
The
Yeah.
pin to my bank? What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nope, didn't work.
So yeah,
Hacker.
you just multiple tap that a few times, and that unpins the launcher, the manage home screen, and gives you access to the rest of the device, so you can go in the settings, etc., all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So pretty cool. And then all you need to do, this is obviously designed for your IT admins, etc., is launch the manage home screen again, and give it a few seconds because this is a bit of an old device, and there it is, back to there again. Notice there's a few other options on that menu there as well. So the ability to look at some logs, which is something that has been significantly lacking since the introduction of Android Enterprise. Four letters, GDPR was the answer that I seem to get most of the time for that.
Yep.
So yeah, but there are some logs available for troubleshooting purposes on there. There we go. So the Android device policy app. Okay. This essentially is integrated with the Microsoft Intune application on some of the fully managed methods of enrollment, and is based on what's called the Android Management API. So fully managed, dedicated, and corporately owned work profile devices are kind of based on that. Talk a bit more about that one later, but it's significant that the Intune platform has adopted that, because it means that when new functionality is released by Google, then there's again no lag in development time, because the APIs are kind of Google's, which is great. That's it, I think, really, for this kind of one here. Did I want to talk about anything else? No.
I think he covers it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's so far we've covered work profile, and we've covered dedicated, formerly called COSU. Okay. So now let's have a quick look at the other enrollment types. So we'll just talk about the newest one now. So it's in public preview. So this has been this has always been the most sought after mobility use case when you're talking about an MDM solution across all of the different MDM solutions out there. There was a perception that Intune was behind the curve for quite some time in this area, but it was due to the fact that the Android Management API did not support the iteration of that use case at the time, which was called work profile on a fully managed device.
Right.
Okay. So work profile on a fully managed device will not be supported in Intune, also known as COPE, corporately owned, personally enabled. So, and Google actually used to call it COPE, but that term has also been adopted as a mobility use case that was talked about earlier on. So kind of what I'm getting at is the COPE that's available in Intune is different to the COPE that's available on other MDM platforms.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Good question. My personal opinion is I think I said this on one of my vlog entries. Sorry, shameless plug, guys. But I think Google are missing a trick here. They could have added an additional use case, an additional solution set, and added the corporate owned work profile solution set to the portfolio that was available. and kept support of fully work profile on fully managed device. In answer to your question, though, Steve, I believe is a good thing, because at the end of the day, support is being removed moving forward for work profile on fully managed devices by Google. So the other MDM platforms are going to have to go through a whole migration exercise, a whole user comms exercise as to what to expect. Whereas because it's fairly recently been released in public preview within Intune, and indeed it's been backported to support Android 8 and later, I think there's some benefits there for sure. Okay, nice. So essentially see this as it's work profile, but with more access to the rest of the device. Okay,
cool.
Google described it as the enhanced work profile experience. I thought that's what it was going to be called, but no, it's and I sent some feedback into some contacts I have, and I was put right, and yeah, I was incorrect. So yeah, it's actually called corporate owned devices work profile, corporate owned work profile. Does that kind of, am I confusing things even more, guys, or does that kind of make sense?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
I'm lost, but that's okay.
I think at the end of the day, the acronyms make it confusing, but
sure,
what they're trying to do is not.
Yes.
So basically,
we're never going to get away from those.
So when I'm looking at this, as having never managed these, I'm looking at it saying, okay, so you can have a personal device that you can get company data on. So that's personal with work. You have a company-owned, fully managed device, which means the company, it's just like a fully managed domain-joined Windows box where the company owns it. They let somebody use it to do their work, but they own everything that's on it. Then you have corporate-owned dedicated, which is for kiosks, and then corporate-owned with a work profile, which is where I, as a company, am giving you a phone to use for personal and business use. And so I'm not fully managing it, but I manage some bits on it. So it's equivalent to, I assume, this is the way I'm understanding, that it's equivalent to the personal device with a work profile, but it's corporate-owned.
Yeah.
Am I reading that right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Like now, I guess just to clarify, so you've been mentioning Google here a bunch. Are these profiles managed like what you're looking at on the screen here? Is this Microsoft and Intune provided configuration and profiles, or is this something that is coming to us via the Google Play Store integration into Intune? I know that it facilitates the connection, but like, where's the profile originating and stuff?
So the profile is integrating with the Android Enterprise service itself, yeah, that initial link to the managed Google Play is the actual integration to the managed Google Play service itself as well. Just functionality has just been exposed within the Intune service for that. Okay, cool. So I suppose we should have a quick look at a corporate-owned work profile device. Again, I've got one that's it's already been enrolled. In the interest of time, so
do not let time get in the way of good content. Just roll on and do what you need to do. If we need to slice and dice this, we will.
No worries. Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay. Let me just check my mirroring. Oh, let's get rid of that. Sorry. Okay,
we're such juveniles. Sorry.
No problem. No problem at all. I just want to make sure that my USB debugging is on. Okay. Apologies, guys. I didn't prep very well for this one. Okay. So the screen sharing solution I use requires USB debugging, and actually in a lot of the Android configuration, I have to specifically allow USB debugging because by default Android Enterprise doesn't allow it. Okay, that's just loading up. Well, that's just loading actually. We'll just circle back to dedicated, and I'll just show the configuration profile, guys, that's associated with it. So configuration profiles, and yeah, we've gone with the dedicated multi-app kiosk. So I mean, there's just so many things you can do with that device type. You can really go to town with it. This is the part that's specifying what's going to be available on the home screen, etc. You can these are options that have been fairly recently introduced. So even the colors of folder icons sounds basic, guys, but actually in the past I've picked a wallpaper for a kiosk device and I can't use it because you can't see the text on some apps over the wallpaper.
Right. Yeah.
This is going to address that scenario. So again, icon size, that's going to help massively. So all configurable there. So yeah, really comprehensive option there for sure. Okay, so we'll take a look at our corporate owned work profile device now. And I know we're not
wouldn't it be awesome if there was a configuration page like this for your own mobile device, so that you could just, like, every time I get a phone, I've got to go through and I got to turn things on and dig through all the menu. Like, wouldn't it be awesome if you could just come to a portal, do all your settings in one screen, and push that junk down to your own device? Like, this is amazing.
Absolutely. But what I would say though is that, especially with Android, with the newer versions of the OS, during the out-of-box experience, there are becoming less options, and there are also even there's even an option now. Let's say you've got a Samsung device, you go through the wizard, it gives you the ability to not install some of the default apps. So like if you don't want Facebook, if you don't want, I don't know, OneDrive or whatever, it will
the Samsung apps.
Yeah. So and notoriously, in my opinion, Samsung devices have so many junk apps on them. So that was a nice surprise when I last done some testing in that area as well. But yeah, I definitely get what you mean there, Adam. It would be incredibly easier. Okay, so as I say, Steve's going to do a super duper demo, hopefully, of the fully managed enrollment shortly. And
no, he's not.
He's not.
He's trying. His screen capture device is broken today.
Okay, no worries.
It works on Windows devices, not on the Androids for some reason. And I was making too much noise apparently while I was trying to figure it out.
You just muted yourself and continued on, but no.
Where's the fun in that?
So actually, then it's good to know that. And while we're at this scenario, so a fully managed device would look very similar to this if you didn't deploy it with the Microsoft launcher. Okay, so you would have this experience almost the same, other than, as you can see, guys, got badged apps.
Yeah, right.
Which is similar to that of the work profile. You'll also notice during the enrollment that there's a nice prompt in the wizard to set up your personal profile. So essentially, it's prompting you to log in with your personal Google account, hence achieving the actual COPE use case. Corporately owned, personally enabled. One thing that I really do not like with Samsung devices is when you first complete an enrollment with either this method or a work profile device, the apps are not visible to the remainder of the device and they are locked within the Knox workspace. there are a few settings you have to go in and tweak, which I'll just show everybody now, which would be useful. Basically, by default,
notice that he had a shortcut for Leon's IT vlog on there.
Coming round to that.
Coming round to that. I like it, man.
And it's badged. Oh, that means it's legit.
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's like the blue tick in Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a company application. So yeah, by default on a without digressing too much, by default on Android, you just have the workspace app, and to get to the badged apps, you have to navigate through into the workspace without pressing on there. What you have to do is click the more options menu. I think that's the technical term for it. Go to workspace settings, and again, remembering you've got to convey this to your end users. You then have to go into workspace style and then turn the hide workspace apps option off, as I have done here.
Okay.
But not only that, by default, any notifications that are coming out of the work profile, any detail for notifications for apps that are coming out of the work profile are blocked. And it is apparent that it's not configurable. So if there's if your end users want to be able to see what's in their email notification in their system tray, you have to go into the notifications and data option, turn that one on as I have, and then for notifications on lock screen, enable that. And then it's kind of in a fit for purpose state.
And this is not a configuration you can push down from Intune?
No.
Ooh.
No. I'm waiting on a response from the product group on that one. See if they can help to try and find out. But ultimately, you know, the nice folder that was created on my Huawei device when we done the work profile enrollment earlier. You don't get that with Samsungs anymore. You just get the workspace app and have to go through that rigmarole, which is not good. It's not good in my opinion. Anyway, I've started a rant and digressed slightly.
No, this is what we want to hear. This is people need to hear this bit of stuff, because this is something that every Android administrator is going to run into when they start deploying these things out. They say, what the heck, man? Surely, and they're going to spend time. So if we can shortcut the frustration and just say, no, just be irritated right off the bat, because these things you have to just know you're going into it this way. I think that's extremely helpful. Now, does this still, even though the apps are separate and not in the work folder, is that just due to the way you configured it, or is that just like between the two different devices, or was that just?
Absolutely, that's an OEM specific setting. So the reason that experience is so significantly different with Samsung and other devices is because back in Android, I think it was 7, there was the decision to unify the Knox Workspace APIs with the Android Enterprise Work Profile API set, but still gives a completely different experience.
So in your profile configuration that you went to, it said folder or launcher as two different options for opening these apps, and so I guess I was just assuming it would bucket them into a folder, was just the way that I was reading that. So can you not even put these into a folder if you did, like, so on the iPhone I can drag the app onto another app and then it folders them for me and stuff. Obviously I've never used an Android, so I've got
sure, I get what you're saying.
Context here.
Yeah, absolutely. So once you've done that, you get your end user to customize it as they see fit. Yeah, you can create folders and all sorts of good stuff.
Okay, I got you. And then you still got the same opportunity here to swipe and disable your work profile same way?
That is a very good question, sir. I've not tested that on this yet. Whereabouts is that?
This is one of the many reasons why skinned Android is not ideal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When I jumped on the Pixel Kool-Aid bandwagon, I never looked back.
I love my Pixels.
By skinned Android, you mean where the manufacturer is putting their
when
overlay
they sit
on
there,
it?
Yeah, so they sit there and they get the AOSP version of Android, and they go, I think we can do better. And by better, they generally mean add more settings and put bloatware on the operating system.
Oh, this is like when I used to have a Verizon Razr, and the Razr out of the box had a vibrate then ring feature.
Okay.
But because I always, it's like it would vibrate like 3 times before the ring would start, and so you didn't have to leave your phone on vibrate all the time so that it didn't ring. You just knew that if you left it on the table, you would hear it when it rang eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But the Verizon firmware would lock down that one particular setting. So it came with the Verizon firmware that locked down a whole bunch of the cool features that came with the phone, and you had to hack it to enable that feature. It was the weirdest thing. So okay, that's what I thought you meant there.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, Leon, did you figure it out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So as Steve mentioned earlier, you sometimes have to swipe right, and the option is there.
All right.
Okay, and as you can see, that's been disabled.
It's grayed out.
Incidentally, to quickly enable that again, if you just select one of them apps, gives you a prompt.
Oh, cool.
Which is, I always forget. There we go. And turns it on again. So pretty cool. So this is in public preview at the moment. There are certain features that are not available yet. I believe app protection isn't available yet. And a couple of other bits. I'm just trying a bit of Google Foo now. I can't quite remember, to be honest. But yeah, it's public preview. So whilst fully supported, the solution may completely changed in how it operates prior to it being released to general availability. So configuration wise is going to be the kind of the same profile as what you would use for dedicated, but you would select the fully managed option, because essentially this is a similar-ish iteration of fully managed, kind of. So yeah, that's kind of it for that one. Where are we? Sorry, a bit of noise downstairs. Dog's going absolutely crazy. Yeah, so the final one was fully managed. So pretty much the same as what you've just seen, but without the badged company portal.
Mm-hmm.
The badged app, sorry. Okay, you've got one token for fully managed. Yeah, and that's kind of a whistle stop tour of the solution sets themselves, really. Now I just want to focus a bit on apps. So appreciate we brushed on Managed Google Play and the benefits of it towards the beginning of this. So I suppose a good place to start would be how do we deploy an app?
Yeah.
And kind of what options are available. So okay, so yeah, in apps under the Android node. So if you click on ads, a couple of options. So Android Store app is what you would have to do if you had device admin devices. Okay.
It's like the traditional app. So if you were to do Windows Store app instead of Store for Business app sort of scenario, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A deep link to the store.
Yep.
Sure. Yep. So you'd want to select Manage Google Play app. Again, something that was really nice. This used to be a separate tab in your browser you'd have to go to and log in.
Right.
Now iframed in, really nice. The sync button. Yeah, I could go on and on of how this has developed over time, and it's superb now.
Yeah, it's
so
really cool.
Let's have a look for an app we want to approve and deploy OneDrive. So search for your app, select it. Now, one thing to be aware of if you wish to pre-bundle the app with configuration settings, it needs to have this on it. It needs to specify that it offers managed configuration. So if you want to know if an app supports app config, it's got to have that on it.
Okay.
Okay. So you click on approve. Talks about some access of what the app has access to and all that kind of stuff, because we're in a privacy sensitive world, as we all know.
Yep.
Click on approve, and then couple of things here. So if the development of that app or a new release of that app means that it needs to request new permissions from the device, you can actually revoke approval of it, which will mean it will stop deploying within your organization.
That's really cool.
And then you can then set a subscribe email address, a generic email address, to have notification of that.
Right. Yeah.
So quite useful. And excuse me, I didn't turn off the sound on this phone either.
Didn't deploy that silent profile to it?
No, I didn't. No. There we go. Cool. So yeah, so typically if it's an app you're not too worried about, select done, and there we are. Yep. So that app has been approved, but at the moment it will not be available within your console. Okay, you need to click on sync.
Yep.
So you could just go through.
So it's the same experience as Store for Business.
Yeah, exactly. It's an external store. Those changes need to be synchronized back into the portal. Yeah, makes sense.
Store for Business, VPP as well.
Yeah.
Cool. So click on sync, and then that nicely navigates you straight back to the Android apps page, and then give it a few seconds. There it is, OneDrive. I just want to go back to that the Android apps menu again and just show you some of the other options. So I'm going to click on Manage Google Play. You'll notice there's some additional tabs on the left hand side. Okay, so you've got your private app store. So if you've got a custom app you've developed internally, it needs to be developed and signed, etc. in the approved manner, and then uploaded, the APK file and all that kind of stuff. So that cool. is how you deploy a custom app to an Android enterprise device, not by going to I think it's Android.
Not going in and adding custom app in here.
Yeah.
Right.
Question. Yeah. I have a question for you around. So this is basically side loading apps, right? Does that need to be configured on the device before that will happen, or this just trumps device settings on side loading apps?
So this will trump that. The service will trump that setting. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
But yeah, just be aware of this one. This is for a custom app on device admin, not Android enterprise.
Right. Yep.
I've fallen foul of that. That's how I know.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, line of business apps are a bad idea anyway. Even in Windows, we should be using Win32 apps. So it's basically getting to that point where that line of business should pretty much be stricken from the record.
Well, no, line of business is still important for Apple, being Mac OS and iOS.
Sure. Okay. But for Android and Windows.
That, yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
For the audience, why? What's the significant? No, what's the issue with line of business apps versus Win32 apps?
That's a whole other video that we could do, but really short. You get a lot more configuration options in Win32 apps that will not be backported to line of business.
And the other part, the main one, is delivery optimization in the Windows world. Exactly. In the Android world, it comes down to which type of profile you can target, because when you're targeting Android Enterprise, everything needs to go through Android Enterprise rather than through the previous iteration. Correct, Leon?
Absolutely. absolutely.
So it comes down to that trust model.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
So the new trust model for deploying apps with Android devices needs to go through that managed Android experience and sit on Google and everything associated.
Yeah. Absolutely. Cool. So what other options we got as well? We've also got our nice web links. Again, you can.
So I saw back in the managed store, you could do web links there. Is that where you should be doing it, or is that the same experience?
So
apps.
So yeah, interesting. I think this is different. So web apps and web links, I think, are a different thing.
This would be like progressive web apps and things like that, right?
So this is what I've done for my blog. Link the app that you saw earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So just put a title on it, how you want it to display, and upload an icon, and that's it really, and deploy it. Not 100% sure how that differs to the other option, actually. Let's have a quick look. Web links.
So it's just going to put a shortcut, it won't put images, and web apps aren't supported on Android enterprise devices with web profiles.
Profiles, yeah.
So that's why you'd have to do it in the other one.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, quite a few options there for different kind of ways of different types of apps to deploy. So I mentioned about app configuration. So app configuration is simply a way of bundling some settings to pre-configure an app in order to stream the first sign-on experience by the end user. So it will if it's not supported natively, it will populate the username, a server name, or whatever in that application. Okay.
Nice.
Now, where this is very comprehensive is with the good old manage home screen that we deployed earlier for our multi-app kiosk, our dedicated device. I just wanted to show you the kind of options that are available there. Now, I'm going to create a new one actually. And no, that's apps. Excuse me, 1 second. App config, add those devices. Right. So I'm just going to call this test platform. We'll go with Android Enterprise profile type. So it's different for your two platforms. So I think you've probably seen by now. Work profile is kind of quite separate to all of your traditional company-owned scenarios. Okay, so we'll just we'll use manage home screen again for this. So you've got two ways in which you can configure these settings. You've got a configuration designer, which if you click on add, it will tell you all of the settings that are available, but also the ones that are grayed out, they're still configurable, but you'll need to manually specify the JSON for that. Okay.
Nice.
Interestingly, some of these settings are actually available in the actual device restrictions profile as well. So just be aware of that.
What happens if you've got it configured in both locations?
I'm not too sure, to be honest.
Conflict and fail, or
just don't do it.
okay then.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm not seeing any conflicts in that scenario. And actually, on that note, the documented recommendation from Microsoft in that scenario is to use the profile that's actually been developed for it. But I've spoken to a couple of kind of mobility experts within the mobility community, and they seem to indicate, and I've experienced some issues previously where if you've got a setting that you can deploy via the app config channel, it's a lot easier to remove that from a device sometimes than if it's built in within a profile.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So just kind of do what really fits for your scenario is all I'd recommend.
Okay, cool.
Certainly easier for ease of administration to use the built-in profile, but I have encountered a scenario, and I couldn't. Yes, I've remembered it. We had a scenario on some devices previously where we used the email profile capability to deploy the Exchange profile in the Gmail app. The Gmail app itself had an issue, but because the way that the app was built into the kind of built into the work profile itself, the only way to rectify that issue subsequently is to re-enroll the device, and it was a bit of a pain for us. So just something to be aware of. I mean, that was a one-off. I've not encountered, touch wood, any issues like that since. So configuration designer, you've got kind of various options you can select, and then various values you can populate, different types of values. There's some options, as I say, you have to manually specify the actual JSON code, but
so can you have both the JSON and the configuration designer? Or
so what I would do in that scenario, if you want to configure it as one app config policy, is I would use a configuration designer first. It will start to populate the JSON, and then I would select edit JSON. So
okay, cool. So it goes across, and awesome.
Yeah,
very cool.
But this is really well documented. Configuring the managed home screen tells you exactly what the score is there,
cool.
And I find it very, very useful. Okay, so that is app configuration. So I suppose now we'll talk about app protection, guys.
Yeah.
So whilst it's not an Android enterprise solution set in itself, in some scenarios, actually, organizations might not want to force their end users to enroll their personally owned devices.
Totally.
So in that scenario, we would use app protection and basically carry out all of our management on a per app basis, really.
Yep. So this is basically where you can start looking at DLP Lite. So without managing the device, I'm going to sit there and ensure that the device is fully secure and stopping people from leaking data.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Absolutely. And you got the option to use it on managed or unmanaged devices, and you can be quite granular.
Well, you can target the same policy to all the devices now, can't you? It's no longer you have to select one or the other.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have a quick look at that now, just explore the settings that are available. If I think that would be useful. Again, I've gone to the wrong place. So within our apps node, we have app configuration policies. Okay. Sorry, app protection policies. Have to excuse me, guys. It's getting a bit late here now.
It's all good, buddy.
My bad. Okay, so let's create a policy for Android. Test, that'll do. Fine.
Very comprehensive name there.
Yeah. Well, usually I kind of just do this when I can't be bothered. There we go. We'll just do that one. It's even quicker.
You're in good company. Matt Shadbolt had similar names on all of his stuff.
Yes.
It's good enough for Matt. It's good enough for me, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Cool. So I think this here is exactly what we were just talking about, Steve. So absolutely, you can target this to all device types, or if you select no, you can be granular on which types of devices you want to target it to.
So do you see a reason why you would only target one type or another? Or would you just say, I'm going to target everything?
I have had a scenario recently, that was actually iOS, to be fair, where the customer wanted a different level of app protection on BYOD devices, which in their scenario were not enrolled, they were unmanaged.
Yep.
And company-owned devices.
Basically, the carrot and the stick scenario.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I know this is about Android today, but there's a bit of a gotcha with the iOS side of things. You have to deploy an app config policy with each app you assign for iOS with the is it called the MAM Intune UPN or something like that?
Right.
It's to enable this scoping to unmanaged devices. It is well documented, so I won't go into it too much today because obviously the focus is Android, but definitely one to remember. Caught me out for sure. I'd forgotten about it. Okay, so we select our device type. So let's just go for unmanaged in this scenario, and then you would select your scoped apps. Okay, so I'm just going to use Ed as an example.
The reason why you won't see all of the apps here, I'm just going to go on a little bit of a talk through, but these apps need to be what are called Intune enlightened or MAM enlightened, and that means that they stop them from dropping in and out and things like that.
Yeah.
Is this also the API for supporting these functionalities?
Yeah. Is that also what Leon was showing before, where when we were in the store, it had that icon on the store app saying you can manage the device or manage the software?
No. The manage the icon in the store was so you could go and do configuration. This is to stop it from DLP scenarios.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So it's a different scenario completely.
Yeah. Well, not completely. It's just one's configure once.
Yeah. One's configure the app, one's configure or protect the data.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, that's spot on. Okay. So I'm just going to pick our Edge app this time. And now this is where the fun starts. So data protection. So we've got various things that you can do. Allow or block backup to various backup services. So that's
the all data. So that's really important. It's not actually blocking the backup of the phone. It's blocking the backup of the organizational data.
Sure. Yeah.
And that one there's caught out a couple of customers that we've spoken to previously where they're like, but I need to be able to back up my phone. It's like, but how did you get the data onto the phone? Well, it's all come off the internet. It's still available on the internet. It's like, why do you need to back up the phone? But there's a lot of people that still want to back up their phones. And in this scenario, when you're allowing that backup, it's whether it's organizational data that's included in the backup or not.
Yeah.
Cool.
So by default, that should be blocked. You shouldn't be allowing org data being backed up.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Because as soon as it's backed up, then somebody could sit there and crack the backup and pull the data.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. I'd have probably brushed over that one a bit too quickly. Cool.
All good. What I'm here for.
Absolutely. Brill. Okay. So various other kind of sort of control methods now. So sending org data to other apps. Okay. So typically you might want to select policy managed apps, but it may cause some issues in some scenarios that I've seen. I can't remember any specific ones.
I've got one for you. So when we first rolled this out at my previous organization, it was fantastic. It stopped us from taking data out of our emails, right? But we needed to go out to customer sites and the address was in the email. It's like, cool, I'm going to copy that and paste it into my navigational app.
Yep.
And it goes, nah, you're not allowed to do that. So that's where you need to make sure, like even from the email platform to the mobile phone engine, like the phone app itself, you need to make those exclusions, because if you don't allow that, you're going to have some unhappy customers.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, I think essentially make sure you test, and that's kind of one of my. It seems basic saying it, but I cannot stress it enough. Test. Make sure you get copies of, get examples of devices that you're thinking of rolling out in your organisation as well, which I'll come on to shortly.
And also make sure you get more than just IT testing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
your workflow is going to be different than the sales executive.
Yeah. I think the underlying theme of all of Intune.training has been test with as many people as possible before you implement things.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, this is my favorite setting. Save copies of org data. Yep. So when you select blocked, you can select specific services, the only places where your users can save organization data.
That's
well,
cool.
Then you just select like storage there, right, Leon?
Yeah, just use local storage. It'd be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
What could happen? What could be wrong with that? So yeah, really good. Transfer telecommunication data to.
That's new. So that's where it allows you to route a phone call.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so yeah, I'll probably. I don't know if there's any other specific settings that are really.
The one that I really like using in here is blocking screenshots.
Yeah.
And the copy and paste data. So the main reason why you would use application protection policies or MAM policies is to stop the leaking of corporate data. And this is where you block the screenshots. You can block keyboards because, and people will go, why would I want to block a keyboard? And that's because it will sit there and stop it from sending your corporate data out to their services while your customer's typing. That's the level that you can get to with the application protection policies.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Cool. Okay then, guys. So
I think that pretty much covers it off, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I suppose very briefly, access requirements. So
of course,
different settings that you can. Yeah, different settings that you can do on an app. So are you going to require the end user to put a pin on the app itself for access, etc. And you can have it as a different policy than what's actually on the phone itself. Yes.
So you could make it need a alphanumeric passcode for the app, but the phone itself could be simple 1, 2, 3, 4 pin.
Yeah. In the case of a work profile phone, though, you can have the option of setting a different work profile pin to the phone pin as well, which also will
impress your customers to no end.
Yeah, not. Okay, and then there's some various kind of conditional launch options. So maximum number of pin attempts, etc. Typically, I think the defaults tend to address most use cases, Steve.
So probably the offline grace period stuff. It's something that I think a lot of people don't really take into consideration. So what that means is if the device has been offline for 720 minutes, you'll get blocked from the device until you go and full authenticate. If it's been off for 90 days, the corporate data will be removed from the device.
Yep.
Me personally, I think that's a little bit too long. I'd be taking it down a lot lower because I don't want an executive that leaves the organization to have 90 days to be able to go and pull data.
Yeah, exactly.
because that's what that is, right? So as soon as you turn your phone off from the network, so turn off the mobile roaming, you could then continue accessing that corporate data offline after that time. Technically, you've got to wait. You've got 720 minutes, and if you don't call in, your access has been blocked. So why are we waiting 90 days before we wipe the data?
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Yeah.
God, don't you hate it when he does that?
Yeah, it's annoying, but I think look, what Steve's saying is a really important thing, and that should be something that gets echoed back to staff and people who are like policy decision makers.
Yeah.
These settings, specifically the stuff that we're talking about right now about the offline grace period stuff, is not meant to punish you, the employee of the company. It's meant to protect the company from people who leave. Because I've lost count of how many times a phone goes with the person who's leaving, and you never see it again, and it's just seen as, you know what, that's just part of doing business, whatever, who cares.
Yep.
It's really, really important. Never discount the exiting staff member. There's always scenarios where
there's
bad
a reason
blood
why they're leaving.
Exactly. And just but I feel like what I'm getting at here is, don't see these settings as trying to punish you, the employee. It's not about you. It's about people that are leaving and about making sure that data doesn't get extracted, once they leave. So don't feel like you're being attacked. Is the thing I'm probably saying to one very specific person who's not on this call
and not going to watch the video.
Exactly.
Also, if you scroll down, you've got those device conditions there. So if you've jailbroken or rooted the device, sorry, you're not going to get access to the content.
Yeah.
Is there any other options in that one?
Quite a few. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Quite a few.
Wow.
Safety net device attestation.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah. So that's my understanding of that, is kind of like that is it's again a free service that is available from Google that carries out various checks of the integrity of the device, I believe. I don't know if you're able to expand any further on that, Steve.
I've not played with SafetyNet directly, but it basically comes down to make sure that it will be an agent running on the device or an app that's sitting there and attesting that it's configured correctly. I think the last one's probably the most interesting to me. Maximum allowed device threat level. This is where if you've got Defender ATP or a mobile threat defense app on there, and it's flagged it as got a risk, you're going to lose access.
Yeah. Right.
Which, from a security point of view, is fantastic. It's the equivalent of sitting there and saying jailbroken or rooted, because it's going to sit there and say, well, you've got these apps that are causing problems.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, guys. Well, I think so for app protection, we'll wrap it up. And actually, I've just got a couple of things I'd like to discuss to finalise this session, really. And that's device selection when you're talking about Androids is key.
Yes.
So when you're testing, test multiple devices. Because your documentation is going to be different for multiple devices. Indeed, it's going to be potentially different when the operating system upgrades to Android 11 slightly. And it is key to understand what the requirements are of the organization for keeping the device up to date with security updates. Are monthly updates required? If so, then you need to make sure you get a device that supports monthly updates. Is 90-day updates suitable? So kind of how do we approach that? Well, there's a couple of certification programs that are excellent. The first one being the Android One, looking at Android One devices. So Android One devices, the actual operating system itself on them devices is developed in direct conjunction with Google. So if the OEM wants to put any junkware apps on there, it has to be approved by Google. So number one, that's really good. So it's a very kind of vanilla experience for the OS. And what else have we got? So guaranteed security updates every 30 days, which lasts for 2 years. And the devices are mandated to support 2 major upgrades at least for the lifetime of that device. And this is not just premium devices, it's kind of 220, 300 pound devices, which is kind of your sort of lower to mid-range devices. So Android One, it's all the phones are documented. You'll see that Nokia is very kind of prevalent in that space. They're the kind of main OEM that has adopted that. Indeed, I'm going to go for a Nokia next as my next device. Yep. Yeah, wow. you can pick up a Nokia 6.2 for like, I think it's 200 odd pounds.
Okay. Running full Windows mobile, right?
No.
Bring back Windows Mobile.
Hush.
Let's not start that debate because we'll be here for another hour, I think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so that's a great kind of, within the enterprise, it's a great kind of approach to look at. And in addition, you've also got the Android Enterprise Recommended program. Mm-hmm. So in that one, security updates every 90 days, but for 3 years. You get guaranteed 3 years of support with them. But you get 1 guaranteed major upgrade. I actually can't remember, if I'm honest with you, if the one is 2 or 3 years for security updates. So it might be 3, but it's late in the day now. But them 2 combined, if you can get a device that's certified for both of them, you're not going to go far wrong. So very important to understand your the cadence of updates on the device is key. You're not always going to get monthly updates, but likewise, it's not always going to be premium devices you get monthly updates on. Mid-range Samsung, some of them, I think they're called A50s now. They were A5s, A7s when I was purchasing them last. Security updates every month, sometimes lasting up to sort of 3 years. Any other advice in that area? It's documented as to some of the devices that support these the security updates and the different cadences. Samsung have something called the Samsung Security Scope. Just show you what I mean by that. So very useful to just be aware of it. But likewise, likewise, some of these devices will drop off here at any time. So whilst it says, yep, these devices are going to be supported for monthly security updates, I'm not aware of any kind of prior warning to that. I dare say if you're an enterprise customer with thousands of devices, you'd have an account manager to help you in that scenario. And then I suppose finally to just talk about bulk enrollment and bulk distribution of lots of devices. So Android Enterprise have their zero touch enrollment program, similar to automated device enrollment / DEP, whatever everyone's still calling it now. Similar to autopilot. Key difference is there's no way to provision a device into the service for enrollment. So if you've got a load of devices and they've not been purchased from an authorized reseller, they won't get into the zero touch enrollment program, period.
Right.
Which sucks for testing, but kind of is what it is. An interesting point to note, no Samsung devices are part of the Android One certification, Android Enterprise Recommended, or indeed zero touch enrollment, because they've got their own equivalents for pretty much everything that Google does. So their equivalent to zero touch enrollment is Knox mobile enrollment. with which you can provision devices that you'd already purchased into the Knox mobile enrollment service. Excuse me, tongue twister. So yeah, zero touch enrollment is the Google's Android Enterprise solution, and then Knox mobile enrollment from Samsung. And I think, guys, that is all I wanted to discuss today.
Oh, that's all?
That's it? That's it?
2 hours later.
You don't have anything more?
Sorry, I just had a wobble on my headset. No, I don't. Well, I probably could talk a bit longer, but no, I think that does cover pretty much most of it.
Leon, if you need a job, all you just send him this video and say, "Here's my resume. I think I can manage Android."
Yeah,
it's gonna be great. Wow, Leon, I think so. I think we're probably going to chop this. We're either going to chop it or at least put some good indexing in it so that folks can find their way around. But yeah, I mean, this is super comprehensive. If you can't manage Android after this, man, I don't know. This is fantastic. You've covered what we've been dragging out in Intune for Windows devices for a year and some change, all in a session here. So I think folks are going to really find this hugely beneficial. So definitely. Can't thank you enough for coming on here and helping educate everybody and educate us. This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's been fantastic. Thanks.
No problem at all, guys, and I really appreciate you inviting me on again. It's been great.
Awesome.
Well, we're gonna make sure we put all of our links in the bottom for you and all those things. If you made it this far, thank you for sticking around. Yeah, I think that's the end of that. So thank you, Leon. And
thanks a lot, guys. It's been great. It's been great
fun. If you think of anything else you missed, come on back.
Absolutely.
You'll have to come back to do the iPhone stuff or the iOS stuff for us.
Yes, it's actually really good. Yeah.
Fine.
And if anyone's picked up anything that he's missed, put it in the comments.
Oh, there'll be something. Don't say that,
Excellent.
Ben.
No. It'll be great. Come on.
If they've made it to this point and you've missed something, down there.
Yeah. Happy to take any feedback. It's all good. Every day is a learning day, guys, right? It's all good.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to end the recording.
Thanks, Leon.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah.